Good morning. Thank you for joining the August 7th, 2018 VOLTA call. And just a reminder, we record this to post it later to YouTube, so keep that in mind during discussions and presentations. And with that, I think we'll get started for today. This is the final week of Sprint 5. It is targeted to close this Friday, Sprint 5 for V2.0. And so we want to get a status on some of those items, but we have a few discussion topics to go over first. And I think I have Sean Missette. Oops, I don't see Sean on here yet either. Okay, so we may have to follow up on a couple of these once we have a couple more folks join the bridge. So we had two discussion items requested by Nick for some issues he's working on. And then last week, if you recall, we did some discussion on whether or not to deprecate the tech profile support adapter stories for the EdgeCore OLT adapter. So I have not seen any additional comments come in on that proposal. I wanted to check with Sean Bissett to see if he's received anything separately. But the proposal was to go ahead and deprecate those if there were no objections. No objections were raised last week or on VOLTA discussed to my knowledge. So we'll follow up once Sean Missette is on for that. And let me see if, Lynn, I do see you're on the bridge. So we did have one follow-up item to discuss with you today. So after last week's meeting, we were going to have your team look at whether or not CIG would start migrating to the open adapter.
CIG is willing to migrate to the open OLT adapter and will deprecate the current vendor-specific adapter later.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And one more question is that there would be won't be a common ONU adapter, right? In the future, I mean.
In the future, I think that's the end goal. We're not quite at that point yet. So Chip, I don't know if you wanted to add anything more related to OpenAI for that.
Yeah, we'll probably have a common adapter sometime.
Don, we might need you to go on mute. Thanks.
Oh.
Chip.
Yeah, at some time we might have maybe a common base class where there's very little code in a conformant ONU, but that's not planned until maybe after the 2.0 effort.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And then, Nick, do we have you on the bridge? I see you now. Great.
Yes.
So let's jump up to the two topics you wanted to discuss today. The first is related to bold 1044 and 1115. So I'll let you open up that discussion.
Okay. So it's rated. The other one is more interesting, I would say. So what we're currently doing is we have logical flows coming from ONOS. They are added to the logical device flows in VOLTA. Then those flows are decomposed and then sent back to the device flows as is. The problem is it's sending the same set of flows for all devices, regardless of the implementation. And those flows are very little resemblance to what's really happening. So my suggestion, and what I implemented in OpenOLT as a proof of concept, is instead of decomposing those logical flows and then sending a decomposed set to the adapter, I mean, not even to the adapter, to the device engine would then call the adapter. We directly send the logical flows to the adapter, and the adapter is decomposing in its own way because it might have a different implementation for different adapters, and the adapter will store the flows or a representation of the flows that it's actually pushing to the device to the HCD device flows. Basically trying to remove middlemen, because we have many middlemen and everyone is changing the flows and then acting on something different at the end. And this first translation, since it's the same for everyone, we gain zero information between the logical flows and the device flows. By acting on the logical flows and being able to store in the device flows some representation, some ID of like an identifier of the flows pushed, it also make it easier to remove flows, because now we can match to the logical flows. So what I did in my case is I used the cookie to store the logical flow ID, and then the ID to store the physical flow ID. So when a logical flow is removed, you can track down which flows it's impacting and then remove those. So yeah, that's my proposition. So removing middlemen. And
so my understanding is the cookie is a hash that may not be unique.
True. I mean, it's more like for the device flows, I'm overloading the cookie elements of the OpenFlow construct, but it's not. It has no OpenFlow related function at this point.
Right,
this
but you can't rely on it being a unique identifier because the standard doesn't allow that.
No, I'm not using the cookies coming from the logical flows. I'm using the ID coming from the logical flows, which are unique, and store this in the cookie of the device flows to have a mapping back to device flows to logical flows. And I store the ID of the physical flow in the ID of the physical flow. The cookie trick is just to have a mapping back from the device flows for basically which parent flows it's coming from. We could change the construct and to expand it, but then it will not be OpenFlow compatible. And the way it has been built, we use the same OpenFlow gRPC objects all around. So I just reuse this to enable the tracking. So one more point to enable this and be fully backward compatible. The same way we have in the device, you can set if it's updating bulk flows or updating incremental flows. I just added one to be act on logical flows directly. So we can check on this, and every adapter can move to this or not move to this whenever and if ever they want to. So it's fully backward compatible.
How would flows be decomposed for the ONU, because that's sort of tightly coupled with the original?
Agreed, but imagine if you have OLTs with different capabilities. Imagine you have an OLT that can do both tags, or maybe you want to do something completely different, and just tell the ONU, you send your flows with this one tag, always the same one, or maybe with no tag and just something. In this case, basically the OLT, which is the parent, the first device in line, will decide what the ONU would see. So it even trickle down. So the OLT gets the logical flows, decide how it's going to act accordingly to it, and decide which piece the ONU has to implement. I mean, has to abide by to allow the full set to be active.
This is Ken. I have a suggestion. I think by looking at what you try to do in the OpenOLT, I believe this is a bigger discussion than just a discussion during a Scrum. My suggestion would be maybe to have a presentation in one of the TST meetings to show really like the advantages having this decomposition being done in OpenOLT currently. And also to have all the other adapters to chip in to figure out like, do we want to move the flow decomposition from the core into each adapters, or is there somewhere in a middle line where the core will do some basic decomposition, and in some cases, like in the OpenOLT, maybe it will get all the logical flows. For some other adapters, it will just get those decomposed flows. I think that there's a bigger discussion here than just
it is.
Yeah.
It is for sure a bigger discussion, but I do think, especially in the context of the core rewrites, decomposition, which doesn't give us much information for sure. It's just at best it's splitting what the ONU is supposed to do and what the OLT is supposed to do.
No, I understand that. I mean,
a set way.
Yeah, you're talking in terms of the open OLT. I want to hear from the other adapters vendors too, and figure out, is there something that the core should be doing that is not doing, or is there a different approach that we have to take? So that's why I'm suggesting maybe a presentation on the pros and cons, so at least it's clearer for everybody, like to make the right decision.
Yeah, and maybe also think forward about how this is handled, like in an NG-PLAN2 implementation, where you might have multiple OLTs going to one ONU, or a DPU situation.
I think it would even simplify the case for DPU situation. Because currently you would need the core to determine if there is a DPU, how split into three-way flows instead of two ways. And in this case, if the OLT adapter gets the full set of logical flows, it could be able to decide, I'm taking part of this chunk of the flows, I'm pushing the rest of it to the DPU, and then the DPU say, I'm taking part of this chunk of the flows and pushing the rest to the ONUs. Well, I think the adapter is more aware of its capabilities than having it in the core.
Yeah, probably of the parent port, it wouldn't be talking to an OLT logical device. It'd be its own logical device with the CPE as its child. So.
Yeah, this also seems like it's impacting on standardization. I mean, there's certain behaviors that are standardized for the OLT and for the ONU, and I think as Chip mentioned, there are circumstances where you want some predefined behavior of what the ONU is doing and the OLT is doing, because you may be having multiple OLTs managing the same ONU.
Yeah, it might be that the OLT is smart enough when it does get these standardized flows to combine them in a way that's more efficient on its part, but that's more of a per OLT enhancement.
So I have a question then. How would you remove a flow?
How would you remove a flow that the flow is removed?
There is currently no mapping between an actual flow that is in a device or an actual construct that is pushed in the physical device to anything within VOLTHA's memory. Zero. Unless we have a static mapping to which we say we redecompose the flow and say the HTTP flow will have the ID 18 and those kind of things. But if we were to do a first come first serve kind of thing, if we had constraint on the flow IDs, it will make just a mess if we cannot backtrace back to the original flow.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's multiple issues here, right? That maybe we need to. I think Ken maybe had a good suggestion where maybe we just discuss the whole problem in a separate meeting.
And I think we have to be careful if we're trying to solve how do we do traceability back. There are ways to do that versus, solve the other problems. So I think you're right, Sean. There are multiple problems. Which ones are we trying to solve, and which is a priority?
So, question for the team: do you think this is something we can cover during one of the Thursday calls, or do we need a standalone meeting for this? One of the Thursday calls, okay?
I think that should be okay, right?
Yeah, I think it's a good first step. I mean, if we have issues, then maybe we need more time.
Okay. So, Nick, how about let me know your availability for the Thursdays calls. We have one presentation lined up this week, but we likely will have some more time on Thursday, or we can look at following weeks if needed.
Okay.
Okay. Then let's
go on.
Go ahead,
does
Sean.
the community require some kind of presentation, or just a verbal discuss like this will be okay?
I would like some presentation to really understand the problem, because otherwise there's a lot of talking, but you actually see the flows being done and what is being
visual might help.
That would help.
So Nick, is that something you can put together in 2 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so should I add it to Thursday's agenda then?
Or Nick, if you already have something implemented in your local repository, maybe do a demo that way. I think that'll be fine too.
Oh, yeah, sure. Can do that.
Okay. So we'll put this on the agenda for Thursday. I can't type here, sorry. Okay. And then the next topic you wanted to go over with the team today was for device management, the disable, re-enable, delete
Yes.
sequence.
So somewhat similar to the flow ideas. When we want to disable, re-enable, or delete a device, in most cases, we need the parent device to be notified to do some cleanup. For example, if you were to delete an ONU from an OLT, not only you need to delete the adapter handler for this ONU and remove the data from the VOLTHA data store, but you need also the OLT, the physical device, to forget about this ONU that is never ever needed, like remove its activation based on the serial number and just forget about it completely. So to delete one, we definitely need the OLT adapter because we need the OLT to be notified. To disable and re-enable, we can do it. What's currently done is for the ONUs, it's done through OMCI call. There is a call to disable, which is doing a lock. It's locking the LAN ports basically, and then the re-enable is unlock. The problem is this doesn't hold for reboot. If you reboot after a lock, when it's coming back, the lock will not be there unless it's repushed. So there is this tracking that might be somewhat tricky. What I suggest for all those device management pieces, disable, enable, and delete, to have them flow down from the root parents. So you send it to the OLT, it's cleaning what it's supposed to clean, and then it's passing it on down one layer to the ONU for it to clean what it's supposed to clean. And then if we have like a three-way device with a GPU in between, they all get the information that we are supposed to delete this child or this descendant in some way. So have the information flow top down for everyone to know and delete, or clean or impact what it's supposed to do. In regard to the disable, re-enable, for example, the OLT can disable an ONU and then re-enable the ONU. So what we need to do is to have the API calls to go to the highest parent and then have the parent decide, can I do this, yes or no, and what do I need to do, and then pass it on to one layer down until everyone has been impacted on the line and everyone has been made aware of the change and has acted accordingly.
Is there a dependency, an order dependency here in terms of it has to go parent to child, or does child to parent, or if order doesn't matter, could this also just be handled through an eventing mechanism?
I think it can be done either way. The thing is, if you try to implement it twice, for example, the disable, if you try to disable it through OMCI after it has been disabled by the OLT parent, you cannot do it because there is no longer OMCI communication. For the delete, I think it'd be fine.
But from a cleanup perspective, could we keep the control as it is today, and then when it's deleted, an event goes out which basically says this is deleted, then anybody who cares can do cleanup on that event? Or does it have to? That's kind of where I was getting at order. Anytime you get into a delete event, you have a non-deterministic order into who cleans up first. So if order doesn't matter, an eventing mechanism might work. If order does matter, then we have to figure out how to ensure that order.
Is this something that like a device profile, state variable in that can take care of? Because currently with the XPON commands, the enable or disable or delete of the VOLT any is recognized at the same time by both the OLT and ONU device adapters. So is there an equivalent as we go forward with profiles?
I'm not sure I followed that question, to be honest.
Well, I mean, the device profile, right now XPON is persistent, so on startup you can tell whether a VON any exists as enabled or disabled. So that would handle the reboot case. So as we deprecate XPON, is there a technology profile for the equipment or interface that would have an overall enable or disable characteristic?
I guess I'm trying not to, in my mind at least, not have state in technology profiles.
Mm-hmm.
Enable and disable is a provisioning item. It's not a state. So in other words, admin status is a state, opera status. I mean, admin status is a provisionable variable. Yeah. Opera status is a state.
Yeah, so I think maybe so I suggested maybe having kind of the equivalent of a technology profile for equipment. I guess I probably need to make a presentation around that. So once if there's a profile for an ONU instance, for instance, then it can create based off of the profile information for that particular type of ONU. It can go create that particular device information. So it may have an admin state that's by default disabled. They could get changed to be enabled at some point, right? So is that what you mean, Chip?
Yeah, I was going along those lines because okay. You have some way of provisioning serial numbers or other strange items. That upstream, downstream.
Yeah, so I guess there's no right now. There's no equipment management, I guess, in the system, right? So the XPON provisioning had some aspects of that. And we probably need to have some kind of equipment management in the system at some point. I think I have a suggestion around using some equivalent of a technology profile, but for a piece of equipment to kind of bridge the gap. So maybe I could have a profile for a particular ONU or a particular OLT that has a bunch of default stuff set, just like the technology profile. But I guess we should talk about that.
One thing I have been wondering, even though the XPON config will be deprecated, is there any portion of the XPON config we can, put it into a different microservices and then maintain some of the device states or that kind of stuff?
Well, it wasn't. XPON is not really device oriented. I mean, it's XPON
the technology.
So there's kind of there's an implied relationship between a virtual ENET or some component of the XPON configuration and a piece of equipment. It's not a direct one-to-one mapping, but there's an implied relationship. Like the ONI, so the ANI has a serial number, for instance, right? So I guess that's used to represent the equipment.
Yeah, I think if there was any XPON that would be living around, that would probably something that would sit on top of any kind of device management in VOLTHA, but the XPON would be outside of VOLTHA.
Right.
It's completely external. So.
I guess that's what I meant. So I don't know whether on the CIVA architecture, the name layer, I wonder whether that's too high above. Is doing a lot of configuration, the proxy related information, but it does store information, and then as we saw the demo, the state is being reflected on the I would say HIPPY OSS, right? So
right, but
that.
I guess that doesn't exist in the core, right? And that's an SDN abstraction, right? The self-employed abstraction. But you know, you do need some kind of equipment management that makes it down to the adapter.
Okay, so what do we get back to Nick with the Nick's proposal? I mean, what's the conclusion? Or you know, Sean, you want to present something?
I mean, I think there's two pieces of it. There is the equipment aspect. For example, if you want to change your port speed, it's not set up currently. I think that's part of the equipment profile scenario use case. And then for disable, enable, delete, it's more of everyone on
management
needs to know. It's not only the device that's impacted that needs to know, it's the other devices. How we want to do it, I mean, that can be discussed. I suggest top down, the parent, and then goes down. So when the parent has successfully done what's supposed to be done, for example, the OLT is disable the ONU, it doesn't need to ask the ONU to disable itself. It can just change its state and wait for re-enable, and then same thing, catch in the same order and do it. Maybe some other adapters would do it a different way, and they will pass the order along to the ONU, and so on.
See, this is why I kind of lean towards eventing mechanism, because we don't know how everybody wants to do it, or even particularly the complete set of people that need to know who might be interested in it. If you do more of an event mechanism, you have more options there.
It's always the question about the order. Do we need the order to be the same? I mean, if we need order, we need to pick one and stick with it.
Agreed. That's why the original question was: is this order dependent? And if it's order dependent, are there different orders that we have to support because of different technologies? And if so, how do we support those different orders?
Can we have a flow diagram? Sorry, it's the sequence of events regarding to all these three happening.
And there's no sequence here. We haven't really decided anything. So the question remains: is this order dependent? And if so, how do we enforce that order, or how do we enforce multiple orders if multiple orders are required based on the different technology/vendors in play?
And on my side, if we go from the top parent down, it works. I don't know if there is another adapter that requires the other order. That's a question for the other folks.
So let's say when you say top down, right? So right now I'm an operator.
OLT.
Right.
If you want to disable an OLT, this API call would first go to the OLT, and the OLT would say, okay, this ONU that you're supposed to disable is my child device or my descendant, if it's a DPU case. Should I do something here? Yes or no? If yes, I disable it and then stop it there. Or maybe no, it's a DPU problem.
And you get into the scenario: how do you replay if in the middle of, you're essentially implementing a small workflow, and if in the middle of that workflow something that workflow goes wrong, how do you restart the workflow? You get all those kind of workflowish questions, and those just need to be addressed, right? Even if we say we're going to ignore failure scenarios initially, right? We have to figure out what those are and even if we're going to ignore or address them, right? If the command gets to the OLT and something crashes and the OLT adapter restarts before it gets to the ONU, how or when is that replayed, right? We got to get all those questions.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably more drawing to be done.
Right, and I don't think we want to implement an orchestration engine or workflow engine in an adapter, because that's essentially what it comes down to.
I've got a question here for the group. I'm just watching the time here. Is this something that can be handled over VOLTHA Discuss, or do we need a separate, dedicated discussion time on another call?
I think a separate dedicated discussion time would be needed, in my opinion, anyway.
That would be good with me.
Okay, so I think we probably won't have time on this week's call because of the presentation we got on the core adapter interface, and then also we've scheduled in the discussion for this first topic. So I think I suspect we won't have time for this discussion as well. So we can see, but we may have to look for next week or something.
Also, can we also agree on what disable means? Just because there was a mention about the ONU not being able to respond if it was disabled, but that's not in the case of an admin down that it would still be able to respond. Is this kind of some kind of quarantine operation? Or?
So the admin down. I think enable disable is basically set that admin state is up and down, right? Nick?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but an administrator disabled ONU can still respond via the OMCI, right?
It depends. If you admin it down at the OLT, I don't think it can respond to the OMCI.
Well, in terms of G.988, if I do an admin down of an ONU at the ONU, it can still respond via the OMCI. If I do it somewhere else, then that's not determinate, I guess.
But if you admin down the ONU in the OLT, you admin down the time slot, I guess. So the ONU is having.
Yeah, one of the things, how about there's like in the current one, you can admin down on the VENet, and that would do the administrative lock on the uni, and that would be equivalent as opposed to admin down on the ONU, which shut down the ONU.
Well,
so you might want to do.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, but if I admin down the uni, I'm not admin down the gem communication, right? So
yeah, basically.
Right. Okay, so let's see what we can do for a time slot. We could, I don't know if anyone will have any material to present, but if there's time permitting on Thursday's call, then continue with some follow-up ad hoc discussion. Otherwise, we'll try and schedule this in for a future time slot.
Yeah, and there was a JIRA story around admin down as well that I thought everyone agreed to, kind of moving the admin down function to the ONU. But I guess that's not agreed to anymore.
Everyone agreed but me, I guess.
You can take a look.
I guess we're in trouble with it.
Let me know. Otherwise, I'll try and do a search, see if I can find something. Okay. All right, so we'll continue follow-up discussion on this, and then Sean, it looks like at some point we'll have a presentation from you also on a proposal for equipment profile to handle some of the XPON config things that are will be deprecated but still need to be covered in our new approach. So let me know when we're getting close to when you'd like to have a time slot for that. Okay, then I think let's go. Nick, anything else before we move on? Got a lot of follow-up, I think, at this point.
I think it's okay now.
Okay, all right.
I've done enough damage.
We've got 24 minutes left here, so let's see. So Sean, I think before you joined, we just did a brief recap of the discussion on the proposal to deprecate the EdgeCore OLT adapter stories for technology profile support. I heard nothing more in terms of any opposition. I didn't see anything on VOLTHA discussed. Did you receive any opposition or comments separately?
Nope.
Okay, so I think then, as we talked last week, there's no opposition, so we will move forward with this proposal. Okay, so Sean, maybe we can get together and sort out the closing of those tickets. All right.
Okay, sounds good.
And then I think the next item I wanted to talk about is 1121, and I do see, Jono, you're on the call. This is when I think I had a question for Jono. So this was related to, I think we had expired certificates, and the issue was resolved for everything except, I believe, PondSim. So we're kind of, I think, on hold a bit. You know, there was a temporary workaround if people needed it here.
Yeah. So I guess one thing is anybody actually has anybody been using PondSim in the last, I don't know, 6 weeks or whatever it was since the certificate's expired? And if they are using it with SSL, then do they have some kind of fix that they can check in? And then the other thing is if no one has fixed the SSL, then I guess someone needs to put time into fixing that in the right way, or we could decide to just disable SSL on PondSim, given that it's a simulator for testing and development. I'm not sure that it needs SSL on that connection.
Okay, thanks, Jono. Any comments from the group? Reviews?
I mean, I guess there's a question for Ken and team. Are you guys using PondSim in the last few weeks?
Not in the last few weeks now. Like we're busy doing the core work. We have not been using PondSim. But if anybody is going to test any adapters with encryption, then we'll need to have an adapter like that will mimic that encryption mechanism. So I don't think we should remove it from totally from PondSim. I think we need to fix it.
Well, I mean, the encryption is just between the PondSim adapter and PondSim itself, right? And both of those things are test/development fixtures. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to fixing it if somebody knows how to go in and fix it. It's just somebody needs to put time into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. I think at this point we haven't heard any volunteers for digging into how to resolve the issue. So we will flag this as any volunteers and follow up on that probably in the next sprint at this point, since this is our final week here. So Jono, thank you for the update there. Ken, thanks for the comments. Let's take a quick look, if we can, at the new JIRA issues, starting with 1132. And so the first one there is Broadcom OpenOMCI restart and resync, and there's improper MIB resync on an ONU restart for the Broadcom adapter. I need to adjust my screen a little so I can, well, okay, got to close up the controls for the meeting. There we go. Okay, so this one is, I think, being worked by Matt in the current sprint. Any questions from the group that need to go back to Matt? Okay, I'm not hearing any. Then we'll go on to the next item, 1132. Invalid group metric name in VOLTHA CLI. Command does not generate an error message. So Chip, that one was opened by you. I see an example down here.
Yeah, and that's just perf config commands work. They don't really have too much error checking in them or cleaning up of group names.
And this one, we don't have an owner for it at this point or an assignee. Is this one that can wait till the next sprint? It's a medium priority for the defect?
I think it is, and I'll be happy to work on it during next sprint if no one else does, because I'm working in that area.
We'll target this for sprint 6, probably about middle of this week, which I guess is probably tomorrow. I'll open a placeholder sprint for that, and then we can target that item. Okay. Thanks, Chip. And if we get another volunteer to work on that, then that's great. Otherwise, Chip, thank you for your offer to pick that one up. Okay, next item is 1134, VOLTHA PM config CLI does not support groups with space. Chip, another one opened by you with an example here of the behavior.
And that's just due, a lot of the performance groups have fairly long names. Do we want to make sure they're just always camel case, or do we want them to be readable and easily presented in a menu or a graph? If we want spaces, this is a very easy fix. Or we want to allow spaces.
Do we have any immediate group views from the group on preferences, or is this one we need to just maybe take the poll to discuss to collect preferences for this? Okay, I'm not hearing anything on this one right now. So Chip, is this again fine for the next sprint?
Oh yeah, it's fine.
For sprint 6?
Yeah, I can always use REST.
Okay, and we'll need feedback from the team on whether support for spaces is desired. Or in name. Let's see.
Okay, again, I don't know how we vote on these things, right? It's perfectly reasonable for an identifier and a CLI to say no spaces, right? You have an underbar if you need it. Done.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, Chip?
Yeah, I just, if we want to have that convention for performance groups, that's fine with me. This is just all a preference. I'm willing to do underbar.
Okay, so we'll see if there are any other comments on that one.
And we can have NIM clean it up.
Out or forward. Okay. Any other comments before you move on? Then our next item is 1135, and this is a new one for remove OpenOLT alarms directory. It's deprecated by the VOLTHA extensions alarm. And so that one is targeted for the sprint. Any questions from the group? Okay. And then we do have two new AdTran specific ones. Chip, I think I'll skip over those since that's work you're doing in the background for the AdTran adapters. And then we'll go to 1138. And this is related to one of the stories in the sprint currently with a typo that'll be fixed after it occurs, I believe.
Yeah, muscle memory always does KPI or PKI.
Okay, then other questions on the new issues. Let me just do a quick refresh in case anything came in during the call. I don't see anything else. So back to the agenda. We've only got about 15 minutes left. Let me move first to 542. This is the blocker issue that we have. And I think I saw Amit on the call.
Yeah, Julie, I'm online.
Do you have any updates here? I know you were looking at alternate solutions for this one.
Yeah, so I looked into the code and it should be possible to get rid of the OLT data where we're copying the data.
Okay, you broke up a little bit there. I think I caught everything. So is this, Sprint 5 is ending this week. Is this something you think that would happen during before we close out the sprint, or will this carry over into the next sprint? What's your estimate? And we may have lost him on the bridge. Okay.
No, he's. I think he's still on. No, he's off.
Okay.
I'll follow up with Amit
okay.
on this one.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that. All right. So at this point, this one's still a blocker for the work that Gamza's doing. So I suspect some of her work will likely end up in the following sprint at this point. So Sean. So I know we got a partial readout from Amit, but with the audio issues. Oh, yeah, I just got a reply from him. He got disconnected. So we'll look at that offline. Then 948, I did want to talk about as well. We have a proposal that came in for that, and it needs review from the group. So I wanted to point that out to everyone so we can get that underway. And this is related to some work Girish is doing for related to tech profile. So there is an attachment here for a resource manager. So that has been loaded in JIRA. So if folks can take a look at that and review it and provide comments to Girish. And I've closed up my control panel, so I'm not sure if Girish is on the call today. Are you on?
Hi, Julius. I'm on the call.
Hi, great, thank you. I had a question for you also. Do you need some time? Do you think we need time to review this on one of our calls with the group, or is just JIRA and VOLTHA discussion sufficient at this point?
JIRA and VOLTHA discuss is good for me.
Great, thank you. All right. So again, ask for the team to take a look at that and review the proposal and provide any comments. Then let me go on to our next item. I had a quick question on, there's a group of 4. We do have them added to Sprint 5 now, 886 and so forth. I'll just move to the first one. It's related to some alarms. There's a merge in Garrett. So I wanted to see if these are actually done or if there's follow-up work at this point.
Hey, this is Nick. So the driver side of the OpenOLT is done. That's the merge in Garrett. And then the VOLTHA side, Mike is working on it.
Got it. Thank you.
And I think he added them to the current sprint.
Yes. And that sounds like it's in progress. So I can probably move those to in progress. Okay. So I'll do that after the call. Thank you. And then 1024, let's just take a quick look over there. Ken, just, oh, it did get moved to done afterwards, so thank you. That happened after I looked at it this morning. And 750, you're fast. 750 and 778 are 2 that are flagged for code review at this point. If that is still from before I checked on the call, we'll see if that's changed. 750.
Yeah, June, for 750, we already raised the Garrett, but I think I have a better way, I have a fix in a better way. So should I keep this Garrett or do I raise a new one?
I guess if you're going to propose a better way to do it, my thought is probably that you would abandon this one. Any feedback from the group, from the developers? Okay.
What is the best practice on this one? People are working on contributing codes.
I mean, you can either submit a new Garrett review and abandon the old one, or just submit a new patch set to the current one. If it's a different proposal.
Should it still keep the old one, or? Okay.
I would keep the one that you want to get merged. If there's one that you don't think will get merged, then I would abandon it or override it with a new patch set.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Jono. Okay, so this one we'll wait for the code review to have that update in. And then I think the next item was 778 was up for code review. Let's take a look at that one really quickly. And this, I think you'd given some examples of what the errors, what the output would look like. So that was the latest.
Yeah, I was just looking, there's 4 Garrett reviews open for this. Can you abandon the old ones? Because I'm not sure which one is the current one right now.
The last one, 10407, is a new one.
Okay.
So can you abandon the other ones?
Yeah. So we'll need you to go into those first 3 and abandon. Okay. Thanks, Jana. Thanks, Venkata. Venkata, can you take care of that? Do you know how to do that in Garrett?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Okay, then next one, 506. I did hear from Andy offline that he's going to be following up with me tomorrow on the target date to rebase that issue. 1071. I had a question there. Let me get to the right tab. And I'm not sure if we have Luca on the bridge today. I better open my control panel back up so I can take a look. I don't think I see Luca on. So this one, I think there's been some review of the updates that he had provided in Garrett. I think it just requires a merge at this point. So I'll follow up with him. I did add a note in there in Jira, so we'll track that one. Oh, was there a question, comment?
Oh no, one of the items they merged. So.
Right. Yeah, but there's a second one. There were 2 phases to it, and installation one is still pending. Okay, 716. Take a look at this one. And Chip, this was one of yours. I think I mainly wanted to follow up on this item. We do have the separate JIRA open for the correction, and it does have a +1, so I think we're close to this one being ready. Any comments, Chip?
No, just waiting for review. So.
Okay. We had the review from one person. Yeah, Michael gave a code review on that one, so I think it's waiting. I don't know if you have others that need review there. Okay. But you've got one listed. Okay, and 717, I had a question on this one as well. Okay, so this is one where, Chip, probably is a question for you. Jason was working on this, and I do see that there was a merge in Garrett. Do you know, or if Jason's on, is there additional work to be done, or is this one complete?
I think that one's complete, Jason.
Okay.
And
yes,
Emma.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I checked to the code file to the Jira, and it was approved by Chip. Yeah,
okay.
So it did done.
I'll
yes.
move this one to done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then 1104, I have a question related to other branches that were in Jira comments. So this is one that fix was provided, I believe, in Garrett and was pushed, but then there was a comment that this may need to be done for other branches as well. So that's a question, I think, back to the team. I'm not sure who we need to look at this.
Oh, sorry, Julie, could you repeat your question?
So this issue was raised, and there was a fix applied in Garrett. And it was, and so that fixed it, but then there was a follow-up comment that this may need to be done for other branches.
Well, I think what we saw there, I worked with Holger, and I think you saw that he tried to pull down the 1.3 branch of VOLTHA and actually saw the same build error. So that was a concern he mentioned there, and so he had to do the same fix to get around that just to get 1.3 building.
Okay.
But do we really?
Yeah. What do we do since that one's already? Okay. Go ahead, Sean.
What I'm saying is, maybe do we usually have to go back to the previous release and then cherry picking back?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess you could wait and see how many people complain. We tried to build 1.3, and I wasn't me, but Holger said that he ran into the same problem, which kind of surprises me a little bit. If that no one modified that, maybe someone went back and cherry picked a change that created the same problem.
Yeah.
Back in that branch. I don't know. We haven't tested it yet.
Okay, so not quite sure how to handle this one here.
Yeah, I mean, just,
yeah, I guess various lab has some. I wonder. Jono, do you have any suggestion, or Dave Bembridge?
Would it just be a known issue then for the previous release? Okay.
Okay, so if we choose these, right?
Go ahead.
I think it's also installation related.
Yeah. Okay. We may need to follow up on that with how to address it. I think, you know, it's still in the to-do state, so it'll just carry over to next sprint if we're not sure how to address it for previous release.
It's not a major problem.
We'll take a look at that. Okay. Thank you for that update.
Hey, Julie?
Question, yes.
So could you set to the notes around enable disable of the ONU? So Vol 482 was the previous Jira story around enable disable.
I can't type again. Full, what was it?
482.
482.
Yeah, there's some comments, notes in there as well.
Okay, thank you. Great, appreciate that. And I think we're almost out of time. We've got about 2 minutes left. 11:18. I don't have the controls up, but I'm not sure if Katie's on. Are you on the call today?
Yes, I'm on the bridge. So I pushed the source code. Okay, I pushed the source code yesterday, so it would be merged in this week.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And then this one may need. I'm not sure if that needs review by others, but thank you for that. And then the last item I had on here for things I knew I wanted to get through is 11:25. And this is now moved to done. So, okay. So I think we're covered there. All right. Okay. So we are at the top of the hour pretty much. So let me just do a quick reminder to everyone that on Thursday's call, we'll have a presentation from Ken. So Ken, I know you've received a few comments over VOLTHA Discuss. I'd remind others to review the proposal that he provided and prepare comments in advance if possible so that he can respond to them during the discussion on Thursday. And then the plan for Thursday is to have this at a state in terms of agreement so that Ken can move forward with the work. And we know things will evolve over time, but we wanted a starting point that was agreed. And then we will add to the discussion time, we will add this first item from today's agenda to Thursday's discussion as well with a presentation from Nick. And then time permitting, we may try and cover some of the device management discussion also, but I expect we will not have time. We'll have to look for a different time slot for that. All right, we are out of time, so thank you everyone for your feedback and your discussion today. And just a reminder that this sprint is targeted to close at the end of day Friday. And then I think with Thursday, we'll be tied up with technical discussion, so we will not have time to do sprint planning for sprint 6, but for the leads on the various modules and the scope items, I will be creating a placeholder sprint in a day or so, and then you can start mapping stories in accordingly. Feel free to do that during planning for your segment of the VOLTA work. All right, with that, I'll close the bridge unless there are any other comments. Okay, thanks everyone, and we will talk to you soon.